So, everyone, this is Dan. He won my scholarship last year. Um, so, we're going to start with number one. Why did you sign up or fill out the application to work with me?
Yeah, so the big kick for me was basically getting into recreational level lifting. I had a running injury. I had been a long time runner, and had a running injury that pretty much prevented me from doing that. Um, so I started dabbling a lot in lifting at home. I had, a small amount of equipment, and had never really pushed much in that general direction, but I kind of was forced to find a new physical outlet. Um, so as I got more involved in that, I of course started to acquire more equipment and more equipment, and I realized that, a certain point, I was using an app to generate workouts, um, making some progress, but also realizing, like, essentially I was in over my head. I had a level of understanding of physicality and basic weightlifting and stuff like that, but um once I started to get into, more complex movements, bigger setup movements, things like deadlift and squat, where, form matters, and, you don't see progress unless you're doing things correctly. For me, it really felt like I didn't know what I was doing per se. So I had actually seen your Instagram account through some initial, like, I think it was through a partnership with Quest Nutrition, because I was doing something with them, um, and came across your profile that way. It was just one of the ones that I was following in the weightlifting community. And so I saw your contest pop up, and I was like, well, this is, I had never considered having a trainer before. Um, I run alone, I bike alone, I lift weights alone in my basement. It was just never part of my thought process. And I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to kind of go all in on weightlifting, I need someone that knows what they're doing, and knows how to help me progress and change in that regard. And, entering a scholarship competition, I mean, it's a low risk, opportunity. So I was like, if I can't stand David, if I can't stand a trainer, if I don't like the program, I'm really not out anything. And so it was a really good opportunity at the right time for me.
Perfect. So, with that, what was provided to you for coaching from winning the scholarship?
Yeah. So, pretty much day one, like when you notified me that, I had won, pretty much from that point forward, it was, a ton of communication. I think the thing that's really been nice, being a virtual client, I'm sure that there are a lot of people that have had a virtual trainer before, and like, it didn't really feel like there was anything happening. It was just a dump of a program, and that was it. But really early on, we had a great conversation about what I had been doing nutrition wise, leading into this, what my level of experience was with weightlifting, but then also just with other, what else I'm doing with my body physically. That was a great conversation to kind of kick things off. Right after that, we got into nutrition. It's still the biggest challenge for me a year in, is eating enough. As a former chubby kid, that's always the concern is, going too much. And the nutrition guidelines that you gave me are, like, super simple, super basic, but really insightful. Have made a huge difference. One is, I mean, it's supported muscle growth, but it's also kept me energized and, ready to go. So full explanation of nutrition, what my breakdown of macros, calories, all of that kind of stuff should be, what supplements I should be taking. And after that point, it was, full, programs. One of my coworkers is, sort of dabbles in weightlifting as well. I've told her a lot about the plans you put together, where it's these 12-week chunks, where you're ramping up, and you start high rep, low weight, move into the low rate or low rep, high weight at the end, and just that philosophy on how we're putting 3 weeks together to make 12 weeks, and how that cycle works. So I got my first 12-week cycle from you, and I was like, this is different. This is definitely different than what I've been doing. There was a certain amount of intimidation factor in going into this, kind of seeing the powerlifting focus, and how that was going to sort of jive with just what I wanted to do. But the other great thing that's been, all along the way is, I'll send you a video of one of the movements I'm doing, and I'll get back, critique in a day at the most. It's usually a lot faster than that. And so I've been getting form correction. All of my major lifts, like my form has changed completely over a year. A lot stronger, a lot more powerful, a lot more stable in all of those movements. So as a scholarship winner month one, I had nutrition, I had training plans, I had advice, I had, a constant check-in. So it was full service right from the get-go.
Awesome. So what would you say is your biggest win from that first 3 months working together?
Yeah, that first 3 months, I think the first 3 months for me was, it's realizing that there are a lot of changes I can make to make progress. I don't know if that probably doesn't make sense, but like realizing I can start tweaking form, and like that is yielding progress, like just being able to set up for a bench correctly, is enabling me to move forward. And so like I got a ton of that in that first 3 months. Not finished form by any means after 3 months, but just like, oh, I can, there's changes and things that I can make to make things better.
Awesome. So on the nutritional standpoint, I know our focus was primarily fueling your body. So what changes have you seen from using the programming, but also using the nutrition protocols? What changes in your body have you seen during those initial, I would say the first 6 months, we saw a good amount of change?
Yeah, I think really the big thing was muscle volume. I came into the program, probably I wouldn't describe it as like lean, but I came into the program fairly light. The first 6 months, I saw, quite a bit of muscle development, and really good energy, during that time period. So really feeling like I always had fuel ready to go to, tackle a workout, but then also get through the rest of the day and probably tackle a home project in the evening, so it was like, physically I could see things, improving, but physically I could also feel it, improving.
Awesome. So in the conclusion of the first 3 months we worked together, how much did your individual lifts go up?
I think my major lifts, in the first 3 months, I think I saw about a 10% improvement in all of them. I'd have to go back and look, to be sure, but yeah, they were all about 10 to 15%, just in that 1 3-month block.
And for a lot of people, that is 6 months to a year of work.
Yeah.
It really is for many clients, whether you're novice, you get the newbie gains, or you're a seasoned veteran. The more you lift, it's harder to see the incremental jumps in career. So it's anytime you see above even a 5% increase in an individual lift in just one training block, that's a huge amount of progress. So as you know, I was extremely happy with the first block, and I think you were too. So what made you decide after the initial 3 months to start working with us, which is now at 1 year?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it was progress, you know. I mean, what hooked me on running like 15 years ago was the progress, you know, like as a new runner, like you're chunking time off of your runs, you know, like over the course of a year, you know, like I took my 5K times down by 10 minutes, you know. I mean, like you just make that really fast progress. And what has always pushed me off of weightlifting in the past is like it's a slow burn, you know, like it takes a long time to build up significant strength. Um, and so working with you for 3 months, seeing one just lifts feel better, you know, like correcting form and making things feel better, but seeing those like weight increases. I mean, after the first 3 months, you know, I don't remember what my deadlift PR was after the end of that first training cycle, but I mean, frankly, it was a weight that I didn't think I was anywhere near,
Mhm.
you know, before I started working with you. So like it kind of got me hooked. It got that competitive side of me, you know, fired
Yeah.
up. And I was like, no, okay, this works. Well,
Yeah.
this system works. And I mean, it's never stopped. I mean, so we're coming up to a year now. And every 12-week cycle has, you know, a new set of challenges, a new set of movements. You know, some of the stuff you're throwing at me now feels pretty advanced. And it's cool to be able to, you know, accomplish those. But it's just, you know, weight gets easier and easier to move. And it's really fun.
So one thing, I don't know if you've looked at this, but what you're doing this training block, you're repping all of your 1 rep maxes halfway through from your first training block with me.
I know.
So
I
that
was thinking,
was,
yeah, I was thinking about that with I think it was Tuesday I did deadlift day, and you know, what I'm warming up with and repping in prep work, you know, is I mean, 225 now is one of my light rep weights when I'm just getting ready and warmed up to do the actual reps you're telling me to do.
yeah. And that's what's really cool for me, is watching the progress of someone that does trust the process and goes all in on themselves. As I work with all my clients, it's always you versus you. It's not about the other person. You focus on your progress, what you can control day to day. So one of the things that I want to touch on is we all have lives outside of programming and nutrition and all that. We have lives. Can you touch on some of the things where you've traveled, you've had vacations, how I've helped you adapt programs and stay on track to where when we come back, we're able to pick right back up or do a bridge week? Can you touch on how that's worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the great one was, you know, at the end of the third cycle, um, I I was traveling on my 12th week, you know, when I was supposed to be doing my 1 rep testing. And you know, couldn't lift, couldn't do anything. I was on a plane, I was traveling and home. And you know, we set up a bridge week when we came back. And, you know, one of the things you told me is like, hey man, this might not go well. You know, these 1 rep maxes might not feel right. And, you know, like I heard that and like I understood what you're saying. But in the back of my brain, I was like, that can't really be a thing. Like it can't be that big of a deal. Because I had so much time with endurance sports, like I mean, I could take a month off of running and come back within a week, feel like I was running the same way that I was before I left, you know, like it just doesn't evaporate. Um, and so we did this bridge week and it felt pretty good, you know, like I was fairly happy with the bridge week. It did feel like a good way to get back into lifting. But then man, I tried those 1 rep testing that following week, and man, I mean I just burned. I crashed and
Yeah.
burned on him, you know, like I didn't even hit what I had done the previous time. Um, and so I mean, it was like a huge gut punch initially, because it was like, I can't believe that like that a week can do that amount of, you know, damage just
Mm-hmm.
because of the way that cycle works. And the thing that was good is, I mean, like you knew it was coming, you knew it was going to happen. We had talked about it in advance. We talked about it afterwards. And it didn't really cause a long-term stumble. I mean, I came back, we started the next cycle, and everything progressed again, the way it should. So it was just reassuring to have you kind of like pointing out these things along the way. And, life gets in the way, and life happens, and it's not a big deal. And I kind of compare that to, I just got back from a vacation. I think it would have been week 3 or 4 of our cycle I ended up missing. And coming back into that and seeing the difference between how that impacted my performance at that stage of a cycle versus at the end. I really haven't seen that same diminished, performance, because it was coming in at lighter weights, it was coming in at higher reps, and it didn't have quite that same impact. So part of it is like life happens, and don't beat yourself up about it, and move on. It's not like you didn't lose everything that you worked for a year for. It's going to come back pretty quickly. But also, like, if it's a meet or if it's a thing, like if there's a significant reason that you need to be cycling towards that, is like, okay, I learned just how important it is.
Yep. So one of the things with that, though, your next training block, your PRs were even bigger, because we did do the same 1 rep max percentages, but that next block, all the percentages were 2 to 3% more on your rep weeks. So you were still pushing like you were having a new 1 rep max. So then that next one, we did have bigger PRs at the end, and every block except for that one. And that's why I wanted to touch on it, because a lot of people don't realize these are building blocks. We are building a foundation of a home. That's how I look at it. If you have a small single family home foundation, you're going to break down all over the place. So you've seen my lifters, and you've seen on my Instagram, a lot of my power lifters put brick by brick. And that has become like a team motto here for even my online clients that are nutrition only. They're putting brick by brick, because we're just one day at a time, one brick in place. Don't try to build a wall. Don't try to do, 4 foot by 4 foot. We're putting one brick in place every single day. You keep doing that, and you trust the process. And if you're having a bad day and that brick doesn't get laid that day, that's fine. We can try to make that up, or we can just progress that next day. Don't make it 2 days in a row. It's like you said, it's not the end of the world. It's not the biggest deal. So one of the last things I want to follow up with is, what is the most important thing you have learned so far with working with Spitz Fitness?
Most important thing. I think one, I'll do a couple actually. I think one is like how much form matters. That's a lot of what you and I work on, is just the form of a lift and the purpose of that form and the purpose of that lift. And your deadlift setup matters, your bench setup matters. Like, those are hugely important in doing it. The other thing that I think has been really critical is that it's kind of what you were just saying. Consistency really pays off. Consistency matters. And the workout that I do today pays off for the workout I do next week. Everything intermingles, and it's even if it's a bad workout, it's still a workout, so it's like that consistency and that repetition. And one of the things that you say a lot as we're kind of moving through some of these things is like, you're getting more comfortable with heavy weight, and that for me had always been kind of like a mental hurdle, particularly with squat, is that you put a bunch of weight on your shoulders and now you have to deal with it. And every time you do it, though, it feels more natural and it feels more normal. And so when I finished up the last 12-week block, just being comfortable doing 1 rep testing in the squat felt so different than it did in the first cycle. And I think I told you, I finally failed a squat rep that had been like, I had never failed a squat rep, because as soon as the weight started to feel heavy, I'm either not going down or I'm just not even attempting it, And so I finally, used the safety bars and set a barbell down on them at the bottom of the squat that I couldn't get out of. So just feeling comfortable with that kind of like weight and pressure is huge.
Awesome. Yes, that's the one thing that I think the biggest key has been for you is improving form. Like every training block, we're learning something new. We're working on making sure your mobility for those lifts are safe so that you can, because you do train alone. We don't want to risk injury. That's one thing with all of my lifters. If we're going for heavy lifts and you're at a corporate, commercial gym, whatever, ask for a spotter or go in the squat rack, put the safeties up. If you have a half rack like you do, then, you have to set up to your safety level. But as these blocks have gone on, I've watched you start going deeper on weights. At the beginning of this, you wouldn't have touched, or you wouldn't even have tried to go down below parallel. And now your biomechanics are better, your mobility and your hips are better. And we're seeing those progress in all different areas. And that's what's really cool for me, because last year being my first scholarship, I really didn't know what to expect. I just know I wanted to help someone, improve whatever their goal is. If it was weight loss, which I know we did see some weight loss initially, because when you started eating more and the workouts were a little tougher, you were like, oh, I'm getting leaner, but I'm also looking bigger. So I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it's part of the process. And a different training stimulus. You were so used to running, so you were leaner, but adding muscle and using body fat coming down, like that's a huge difference. And it's been cool to watch you on your journey over the first year. And I appreciate, you trusting us in getting you to your next level. That's been a really cool experience for me to have my first ever scholarship winner. Just as soon as the 3 months was up, you were, hey, what's next? So, that's why I'm super excited about this next one. And hopefully I get someone just like you that's motivated, wants to do more. So thank you again for your time today. And I appreciate it and can't wait to keep seeing you crush it in the gym.
Yeah. Thanks, David.